Celtic are back in European action on Wednesday night as Club Brugge come calling on Matchday 5 of this season's Champions League. This is Tino with the Countdown to Kick-Off show, joined here by Brydo. Brydo, how are you feeling ahead of this one?
Excited, mate. Great to be back on. Just excited. I think the Leipzig game has, and other performances, with the exception of one, which we won't talk about too much. I think that Leipzig result and performance has let us all kind of dream as to how our team will perform and at the top level. And with the fixtures we've got coming up within that tournament, I don't see why we shouldn't be confident, but we can't be overly confident and we can't write these teams off as well. We'll talk about this Club Brugge in a wee bit of detail, obviously, as best we can, but it's so important that we just probably although we'll talk about them, focus on what our strengths are at home and come away with the points.
Yeah, I think so, and we'll get to that in a bit more detail just shortly. Shameless plug here, Bridal. We send a newsletter out every Tuesday from the Celtic Exchange. Anyone that wants it, free newsletter, just jump to the CelticExchange.com. You can sign up from the homepage. The reason I bring it up, though, is because when we put out this afternoon's, it was all about the fact that we could be set to go as far as we've ever gone under Brendan Rodgers. Now, Brendan Rodgers is a guy who knows nothing but success, generally speaking, at Celtic. I think he won 7 out of 7 first time around. Reclaimed the title last season, all those good things. The guy knows how to win, but he's never been able to take us into knockout stages in terms of European stuff, and certainly not at Champions League level. But now, all of a sudden, I think it's fair to say, Brydo, if we get the 3 points on Wednesday night here against Bruges, it effectively guarantees us top 24. And as I say, that's uncharted territory for Celtic under Brendan Rodgers. There's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, if it doesn't go to plan and, there's still opportunities to do that. We've got 4 games. This is where the confidence should be quite high. In fact, it should be very high. But I say that with a kind of cautious approach that at this level, we don't play against teams at this level every week. Their league's probably a bit more competitive than ours is, for sure. But we've got to do what Celtic have maybe struggled to do, and that is raise your game and raise the levels to beat the teams in front of you. But it's really exciting because I dare say none of us really know what is the ceiling on the team. We don't really know. It can be strengthened in January to help the other side. I don't know. I'm excited because of the performances we've had already, 3 out of the 4 games. Excited about the performances we've had domestically. Even if we've not played great, we've still went away with a victory by 2 or more goals. Even at the weekend, they had one half, we scored 4 goals. When we turn it on, we know that we can do it. It's just we need to maintain those levels or get to those levels quicker and earlier in a game. We can't afford a 45 minutes of getting into a game against these teams.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point. You get away with that maybe domestically at times. You don't get away with that at the top level. And even we talk about a team like Bratislava, who are certainly one of the weaker sides in the Champions League, you still need to absolutely be on your toes. They had a couple of half chances, early bells against Celtic, but despite that, we're going to win 5-1. But goals change games, all of those cliches. And if you're not on your toes from the word go, you could get caught short. But as I say, we'll get to Bruges just shortly. But I want to focus, for the moment at least, on Celtic and all the good stuff our players are doing. We find ourselves repeating, various statements about how good Nicholas Kuhn is and has been so far this season. He backs it up again on Saturday by a brilliant goal against Hearts. You've got Rio Hatate turning in a real impressive second half performance at least. You've got Kyogo getting his 80th goal for Celtic on his 150th appearance. Adam Ida gets 2 goals off the bench. It's a side brimming with confidence. Paulo Bernardo comes off the bench, added plenty of quality as well. A side brimming with confidence, Brydo. And whilst being fully respectful of Bruges, and we'll get to them shortly because they do have certain qualities, I think if Celtic turn up and show the form they have shown at times, particularly likes of a Leipzig performance, I think this is all there for the taking for us, and it's only ourselves that can undo that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And if we go anywhere near the Leipzig performance, I don't think there's any doubt we'll walk away with the points. Leipzig will be a far superior team to Bruges in a tougher league and have done it for a lot longer and more consistently. And we battered them into submission with 25 minutes to go. It was like, and then even the comments after the game about, it was like they couldn't touch us. They could not get near us. And And that's what we need to do again. It'll be a different setup, you know. I'd imagine, you know, Bruges maybe sitting a wee bit deeper, playing extra midfielder away from home like they have done in their other games. Leipzig didn't do that, and might be less space. And it's maybe a different challenge for us, because normally teams fancy their chances in the Champions League against us. We don't really see a lot of teams, so a lot depend on kind of Bruges' I suppose attitude and respect to the results and performances we've put in. If they think that they could come and take 3 points with relative ease, they might get found out. If they respect us, then I fully expect to see them being a bit more cautious, as they have done against other teams like, I think it's Milan and who's the other team? Sturm Graz. It was. I felt it was at home. So yeah. So I think, but from our side, you're absolutely right. The confidence has to be there. And this time of the season, each year, this is where we do tend to find our players, because it's game after game after game, which means players are getting game time because other players have to be rested. If it's Saturday to Saturday, you might find Adam Ida's only getting maybe 15 minutes and he struggles and he can't get his momentum and his touch and his speed right. Whereas when it's game after game, he's getting 25, 30 minutes because players get tired because there's so many games. So now's the time to use the squad. And when we see players coming off the bench, like we have all season, with McCowan, Bernardo, Ida, even Yang to an extent when he's came on in games, you know, like that's the bit that gives us all it should give us all confidence. There are things that still causes doubts, you know. Greg Taylor in the Champions League, you know, and it doesn't look like he's playing by and stuff like that. So yeah, there'll still be question marks, but we've got to be confident based on what we've seen so far. We have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Bride, on that, let's get to the lineup. We'll not dwell too much on it, because I don't think there's that many question marks on it, if I've been truthful. Let me get to it, but I think around about 9 positions probably picked themselves. But let's see if you agree with me on that. Kasper Schmeichel is the starting goalkeeper. We'll go with that. Alistair Johnson's in at right back. We know there's 3 players for 2 positions at centre half, but I think it's got to be CCV and Trusty, particularly based on the weekend. All things being equal and everyone been fit and firing, Bailly would be my pick at left back, but something's up there. He's not in the mix at this moment in time. So I think Greg Taylor does start. And I'll be frank, that is a concern for me. People continually come back to us and say, oh, you're hard on Greg Taylor and all that stuff. I don't think it's unfounded. Greg Taylor has been brilliant for Celtic domestically. He's a brilliant character. He's been a great Celtic player, and who knows, he might sign a new deal and continue to be so. But I do think he falls a wee bit short at this level. And I don't think there's any harm in that or any shame in that. It's a top level of European competition. And I think, and I know he had the assist against Leipzig, despite having a pretty poor half in that particular game. But I just do think this level is a challenge for him, as it is for many players. And like you alluded to earlier on, that would be the wee concern across the back four for me.
Yeah, and I think if you speak to most Celtic fans, certainly the most of the ones that I speak to, that would be a shared opinion. It's not to be harsh, and we don't want the Celtic players. Nobody's wanting to be harsh just for being harsh. It's you're talking about what we've seen. It's not just over a small short pool. It's like, you know, the data, the opinion, the experience is over a long period with Greg Taylor. And yes, he has improved under Ange. You know, he improved vastly with a kind of slight change in his positional and stuff and being inverted, and he actually done very well with it. He plays that pass in the inside channel very well. He's played some wonderful passes in there, but he's made a good few messes. And if you're right though, I mean, again, this will depend on how Bruges set up, but if they set up to play a bit deeper and then try and catch us on the break, that's the position that really worries me, because he doesn't have that athleticism against a bit of kind of raw pace to get back in, especially when we're exposed. So for me, 100% agree that if they were to sit in, then Bailly would be the one, because he's the better one going forward, and I expect us to have more of the ball, and he's better with more of the ball. But for some reason, and only the manager and the players and the people behind the wall would be able to tell us what's going on, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you ask, I think it was the semi-final against Aberdeen was the first time we all expected Bailly to play, and we're all going to that game thinking what type of Aberdeen would turn up, and it was a concern for us. Don't get me wrong, it worked out great. You know, Greg, he done all right in the end. But like I alluded to earlier, if Greg Taylor has the 45 minutes like he did against Leipzig against this team, we might not get away with it. And especially the way they play. So you're right to be concerned, because I share that concern. However, I'm being optimistic, and I think he'll do fine, because I think he will play.
I think he will as well, and I think I'm counting on what I'm saying in terms of, from a footballing sense, I'm being a bit critical of Taylor in terms of what I think he brings in Europe. But if he gets the nod, and we'll be there tomorrow night, he'll absolutely get everyone's support. He'll be fully backed, as will everybody who wears a green and white shirt. So again, as you say, it's not negativity or criticism for criticism's sake. It's just how we feel in terms of the football side of it, and that's the way it goes sometimes. Into the midfield, Brydo, we've asked the question on the weekly show last night, Celtic Exchange Weekly. It was myself, James, Paddy and Miff. Had the debate, had the discussion, Arne Engels or Paulo Bernardo. A mix of opinions, but generally speaking, having gone round the houses and agreed how talented Bernardo was and is, Arne Engels was the guy who got the nod for us. Where are you at on that one?
Yeah, I think he should get the nod. But I mean, I love Paulo Bernardo. We went on last year saying what we've seen. We really, really wanted Celtic to sign him. And I think we got asked the question, if it was £6 million, would you sign him? And I said, yes, absolutely. And I think we've indicated with that in time. But like, Engels, the debate still goes on in my family, that's for sure. And I seen there was a few responses there on YouTube, which is great, because that's what it's all about. Arne Engels has a ability, quite clearly, and at this top level, that's what he's been brought in for. He's been brought in as an £11 million signing for the Champions League games and beyond, of course, but that's what he's been brought in for. And he's done well in the Champions League games, and he done well in the semi-final, and he done well, Atlanta away, Leipzig at home. He seemed to get some stick at the Leipzig game. I still really don't understand that. I don't know if it's people that give him stick in a league game and wanted to carry it on and to prove themselves right. I don't know. But I thought everybody performed admirably on the Leipzig game. Like I said, with the exception of people who had a bit of Greg Taylor was struggled a wee bit. But against top opposition, you can't really have passengers in the middle of the park. And I thought he'd done a lot of good work, no more so than even playing a part in setting a goal up in the Champions League. So I would say he does get the nod because of those factors. But let it not be said that I think Paulo Bernardo is and will be a really, 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 really good player for Celtic. And I made the point about, if we'd an under-21s Portugal captain 3 or 4 years ago, we'd be demanding that he starts. It's a good thing that he's on our bench. Or maybe he will start. But we've got a guy starting for Belgium. We've got the Portugal under-21s captain. We've got Rio Hatate, who we know. That's the quality we've been talking about that we need. Maybe get a wee bit more support in there, but genuinely, that's a good thing. And therefore, whether you think it's Bernardo or Engels, it doesn't. They're both really good options, but it has to be Engels for me.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. But if we find out, if the leak comes out early tomorrow and we find out that it's Paulo Bernardo, I think we're all good. Brady, you mentioned, so your brother Martin he's not having, quote unquote, he's not having Arne Engels at this moment in time. That's all good as well. Everyone's got their shout on it. And I would definitely, Martin's asked the question, I've not got back to his comment yet. I would definitely invite Martin on at some point and we can have that.
Do not let him on anywhere near it. He's an absolute imbecile. He's not getting on it. End of story. If he's on, I'm never coming back.
We'll see how it plays out. Just at this point as well, quick shout out to everyone who's watching the live, various channel members that we all know pretty well, San Fran Celtic, Gypsy King, 1888 CFC, who's a new member, so thanks for joining up there. Remember, you do need to be a member of the YouTube channel to comment on these live pre- and post-match shows. Easy to do, so jump to our homepage on YouTube. You can sign up for one of our options there. Brydo, I think we'll agree then that the midfield three, Callum McGregor, Arne Engels and Rio Hatate will be the way forward. And I think the front three is equally straightforward to pick. It must be Kyogo for me, despite Adam Ida's impressive 2-goal performance. Nicholas Kuhn is an absolute stick-on, first name in the team sheet right now, and Dyson Maeda for everything he brings to the party.
Yeah, and I'll forgive Dyson if he puts a performance in for his performance at Tynecastle at the weekend. I thought it was abysmal. I thought he was so bad on Saturday. But I mean, he still plays his partner goal and all the rest of it. This is what I'm talking about, the levels that these guys are at. That's what we're kind of maybe judging them on. But I didn't think it a good game, but he's got that in his locker. He's got in his locker to be pretty rubbish at times, but then he does some things that nobody else can do, and in these games, winning that ball back high out of the park, like we did against Leipzig for that goal, it's so important. He sets the tone for the team. It's massive. Kuhn is absolutely he's off the scale good, and Kyogo again, like Maeda, is set when he goes. The manager's got them so well drilled about pressing as a unit. I remember games going by and Ryan Christie would charge the goalie and then he would look round and then there'd be 4 players, nobody near him, and then Lee Griffiths would do it twice and then want to go for a fag or something. It's like the structure around it now, and it does come from this not changing the team that much. And Rodgers, as we spoke about last season when we were finding like back fours changing left, right, and centre, and that even in game. Remember we were talking about in game consistencies. It was changed in 1/3 of the game. We were doing this, and then the consistency around that helps us get through. Poor performances in the first half on Saturday. Other games where those changes from the bench get given enough time to make an impact. It's everybody knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and much like his first time around, he didn't tweak it that much. He likes it to make us think that he likes a small pool of players to do that with, and it certainly seems to be what he's doing now, and it's definitely working for sure. And those front 3 are deadly. Let's be honest, they're absolutely deadly.
Yeah, do you know, we've rattled off the team there, and I think I'd suggested that maybe 9 or so pick themselves. I think all 11 pick themselves, just as we go through it. To confirm what we think it will be, Kasper Schmeichel in goals, back 4 of Johnson, Carter Vickers, Trusty and Greg Taylor, midfield 3 of Kalmak, Arne Engels and Rio Hatate, up top Kyogo, Kuhn, Maeda. I really don't think there'll be much, if any, variation in that. But what that does mean, Brydo, is it means you've got some real genuine quality in the bench. So we've covered a couple of guys, Adam Ida, Baye that we've spoke about, Paulo Bernardo. These guys might find themselves on the bench at least to start with. Yang, who I thought had a bit of an impact at Tynecastle, and Luke McCowan, who I think we're all fairly excited about in terms of what he might go on to bring in a Celtic shirt. And again, he's found himself in the periphery in recent weeks, but I think he's a guy that, again, can have a huge impact. And this is the point, Brydo. You're right, the manager generally likes to work with a tight squad, but that means you have to have 17, 18 of genuine quality. And I think whether it's Brendan Rodgers or Ange in years past, I repeat myself at times on this, but these managers have looked to the bench and thought, there's a youth player there, there's a couple of defenders that I really hope I don't have to use, etc., etc. And I think all of a sudden, Liam Scales, the ever-present Liam Scales, will find himself on the bench too. So there's options there, whether it's in defence, midfield or attack. And I think the manager would confidently turn to any of these players if he needs to, during the 90 minutes. And that's a real boost for us. Let's get to Bruges. So they've had a reasonable time in the Champions League so far. They've won 2 and lost 2. Let me run through it. They lost 3-0 to Dortmund. That was their first game, a home game. They then went away to Sturm Graz in Austria and won 1-0 away from home. They then lost 3-1 in Milan to AC Milan. And then they beat Villa at home. And Villa's obviously a side we'll got to face later in the tournament. So they sit on 2 wins and 2 losses from their 4 games. There are a few places behind us. I think we're 15th. I'll check this in a second. We're about 15th and they're about 22nd. Yeah. So right now, they're in the qualifying positions to make the knockout stages, and they'll take a boost from that. So the question would be, and again, you've leaned towards it, what do they do at Celtic Park? How do they approach it? I believe they're a possession-based side. I was reading some comments from Max Johnson, who's ex-Motherwell and is now at Sturm Graz. So he was up against them on Matchday 2, I think that was. Mm-hmm. And he says they're a very decent side. They're possession-based. They like to overload in the wide areas and they play attacking football. It doesn't sound too dissimilar to what Celtic do. And he thinks it could be a case of 2 teams going toe-to-toe. He doesn't expect them to sit in and play on the counter. You've picked up on the fact that they seem to take slightly different approaches home and away. And I wonder if they break that mould and just go for it at Celtic Park, knowing, similar to us, they're on 6 points, knowing that if they get to 9 points, they're almost through as well. It's a conundrum for their manager to work out, isn't it?
It definitely is. I mean, like I said before, like the games away from home, they have done that. And the Milan game, I think they got a man sent off In fact, that was at home, actually, wasn't it? No, it was away. They got a man sent off in about the 40th minute or something. And, to get a man sent off against a team like AC Milan and come away with a 3-1 defeat, it shows you they're obviously organised and they know what they're doing. It tends to be that in those games, that they have been a bit more reserved, if you want to call it. It's just whether or not they take an approach, and do they respect what Celtic done against Leipzig and worry about it? Or do they say, do you know what, we're just as good as them, we can beat them at their own ground, and if we get a goal early, it kind of quiets the crowd down. I'm not sure. I think they must look at guys like Nicholas Kuhn and think that left back needs some support against them. They have to, because he's form. And does that then mean that they put another midfielder in and keep it tight for a while? I suspect we might see a bit of both. I suspect that they might come back and just try and sit and infiltrate for a while. And then knowing that, because the 3 games after ours is Sporting Lisbon, Juve and Man City.
Yeah.
So if they're looking at points, which is kind of a wee bit different to us in the sense where we're looking at playing against teams that maybe of lesser quality than that. So it could be that they feel like this is maybe like one of their last chances to get 3 points. And again, this all depends on their opinion and respect towards what Celtic have done so far. And okay, we've done well. Atlanta away was good. Leipzig at home was good. Bratislava, I think most teams would beat Bratislava anyway. Dortmund wasn't very good. So we need to make sure we don't have a Dortmund performance and we have a Leipzig one. So quite clearly, there's a big swing there. So I do think it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if we can predict it, to be perfectly honest, but I suspect that when they go away from home to try and quieten the crowd and the atmosphere, that they will sit in a wee bit. I don't think they're going to go and allow us to have attacks and get energised and build that momentum up. I think they might try and just do what they've done with their other away games and sit in and play an extra midfielder, for example, who then drops in as an extra centre-half at times. I looked at a couple of things prior to this, and some of the still images had 5 across the back. The midfielder didn't drop back and became a centre-half. Is that because of the quality of team they were playing? Maybe. But our quality in our front 3 should be deserving of that respect as well. So if they do that, it could be a difficult night out wide, because Maida's not that great with that type of team. He's better with space in behind to run into. And Kuhn obviously likes tucking inside on his left foot a lot of the time. If there's a lot of bodies, it will rely a lot on Alistair Johnson and Greg Taylor kind of doubling up to get width and stretching them. So it'll be interesting for sure, but it makes it even more exciting, that kind of the unknown, doesn't it? But I personally think that they'll sit in for a while at least and see how that game pans out for sure.
Do you know, it would make sense, certainly, if they'd done that initially, to try and get a foothold in the game, and then different managers roll the dice at different times, whether it's half-time or in the 60-minute mark, or even for the last 15. As I say, I don't doubt that those 3 fixtures you mentioned will be on their mind. So they're at home to Sporting, home to Juve, and then away to Man City. And I actually think Brugge, of course, will be a pretty decent side, but a lot of sides would look at those 3 and think we could feasibly come away with nothing from those 3 fixtures. And on that basis, I think, whilst they will respect what Celtic are doing at this moment in time, they might think this might offer them, as good a chance as any of their last 4 games to pick up 1, if not all 3 points. And I think that's where at some stage in the game, we'll see them go for it. Whether it's from the start or not, who knows? They do find themselves on pretty reasonable form. I think they've won 6 out of their last 7 games and drawn 1 of those. The last defeat was AC Milan. That was back at the kind of latter part of October, or 22nd of October is the date. They find themselves in goal scoring form. They beat, I think it's Saint-Truden, if I've got that right, at the weekend 7-0. And the guy who seems to be picking up the headlines, and he scored a first half hat trick and then added a 4th in the second half, is the front man. Let me get his name. Christos Solis. He's a Greek striker, 22 years of age. There is a headline in the Record today, and I think it's a bit of mischief making, saying Brugge striker already has Celtic Park celebration planned. It's not quite that. When you read the quote, he just says, this is what he does when he scores, and he'd love to do that at Celtic Park if given the chance. So he's not, I don't know if he's cocky or arrogant, or if the paper's just making chat, but he's certainly a guy to look out for, a guy that scored 4 goals just a few days ago, and I think he's got a Champions League goal into the mix. He'll be one to look out for it, and I think you've picked out another couple of guys as well.
There's a boy, Scott Olsen, I think, Danish boy, so Kasper Schmeichel will know him pretty well. I think he scored 26 goals last season, so he's not as on fire this season, but obviously he's got a lot of talent. There's a boy, is it Vanaken? There's another player who to look for at kind of middle of the park, and then they've got a young boy called Vernon, who's a young boy who's going through their ranks, who's in Belgian football they're quite excited about, but the chances are he probably won't start, but he's somebody to be a bit wary of if we see him coming off the bench. I think what we'll get when we see the team, the Bruges players in person, Belgium have been producing players, for a number of years, and then to the point where we have seen that kind of golden generation that they had. They didn't obviously live up to the expectations and win any European Championships or World Cups, but they've been producing players for a good number of years now. So much so that Scottish clubs go across and they try to mimic what they're doing and figure it out. Why can't we do the same? Teams like Bruges, they're the dominant team with the most money, but they're also one of the teams that bring through the most players through their youth academy as well. So it'll be interesting to see some of these younger players, maybe with names that we've not heard of before. But again, it's great to obviously look at them, but are they doing anything more or better than what Celtic are doing just now in their domestic league? The answer would probably be no. I know it's more competitive, but are they doing any more or better than Celtic are doing in the Champions League? Well, they might be slightly more stable in regards to not having any 7-1 defeats, but we've got a point more than them. We've played some decent teams. I think we should be fairly confident no matter what they throw at us, we find our way through it.
Yeah, and in terms of domestic stuff, they sit second. Excuse me, they're 6 points behind Genk, who are top of the table. There's no doubt they'll have talent amongst their ranks. Their goalkeeper is Simon Mignolet, who spent a number of years at Liverpool. I think he's been at Bruges for the last 6 years. So there's a familiarity there. He's now 36, very experienced, and we know from our own goalkeeper that age isn't really a thing at that stage in a goalie's career. There's a few links between Celtic and Bruges. Historically, Ronnie Dyler managed there for a time. Let me think. Jack Henry had a wee spell. Dedrick Boyata, I believe. And of course, I should have mentioned it earlier on, Arne Engels, played his youth football there. And a couple of guys in the comments, Gypsy King, he's convinced that Engels will score tomorrow. And San Fran Celtic, he says Engels has got a cannon for a left foot, or for a foot, sorry, and he'll score an absolute, let's call it a thunderbolt, and everyone will get on board. So I think he's confident as well that we're going to see something special. I think, Engels may look at what Nicholas Kuhn done against his former side. I don't think a player is ever more motivated than when playing against their old team. And I mean, if you're playing amateur or junior or whatever, you're playing against your old side, you want to prove a point. And I think this absolutely applies at these levels. And I think, see this non-celebration stuff, Nicholas Kuhn was having none of it. He made a point. That's his first 2 Champions League goals. Scoring goals at this level of football is to be celebrated. And I've no doubt if Arne Engels gets 1 or 2 on the night, and I really hope he does, then we'll know all about it. Brad, we're heading towards the end of the piece. There's a question again from San Fran Celtic. He's asking, in certain words, would you take a draw? Would you accept a draw at this moment in time? Now, we chatted again last night in the weekly show about the fact that we all got a wee bit excited, myself right included in that mix, when it came to Dortmund and predicting a win on the night. We got caught up in the hysteria. Celtic were playing so well and we came crashing back down to earth. And I remember even, saying at that point, would you take a draw against Dortmund? Why don't we just go for it? Let's go for the win and see what happens. We'll all take our lessons. Brendan Rodgers and the players have taken lessons for that night. I'll take some as well. But I do think Celtic have got a right to be confident about this one, given the levels. And I say that with all respect to Bruges. Given the levels, given where we're at, given the form that certain players are in, given what we've done in the opening 4 games of the Champions League so far, and including Dortmund, because that was a hugely important learning curve for Celtic. I think that's played a part in what we're now seeing. So in terms of would you take a draw just now? No, I wouldn't. Celtic at home, knowing that 3 points puts you through, I don't think it's the Celtic way to go into it with that approach, and I don't think Brendan Rodgers would allow for it. But where are you at? What do you think is going to play out? Do you see a win? Would you accept a draw which nudges you closer to a place? What's your own thoughts?
First of all, if I was in the weekly show when the Dortmund game was on and you were coming away with that, I'd have told you to check yourself. That's what I'd have said. I'd have brought his back down. I'm pretty sure of that. Now, I did also say that the hindsight guy. Well, I did also say that it could be the best thing that's happened. Actually, it was the Dortmund game in early and having that heavy defeat. No, I think I to answer Celtic's question, the answer would be no. I wouldn't accept a draw. We would have to accept it. We can't protest and change it to a win. It's like no, I wouldn't, because this level of club at home should be the ones, if we're to have shown progress, have to be the ones that we do put to bed. That's if we really want to say that we're making progress and we're not there by default or because of the new format or anything like that. If we really want to say that we've made progress, then it's games like that at home that we should be expecting to win. Away from home, you could be forgiven by saying, you know what, a draw against a decent, well-organised side. Yeah, fair dues. But at Celtic Park, absolutely not. Genuinely, absolutely not. Especially off the back of the Leipzig game. You know, you've got to be confident and go in there and say that. And it is different to Dortmund because they don't have the same quality that they've got to hurt us with every mistake. That's just not going to happen. So it's a case of don't make too many mistakes that you let them in the door. That's imperative. So it's be professional, do what we've been doing, take our chances and be clinical like we were in the Leipzig again. It was the biggest difference was the clinical aspect. Bratislava too. We've got to do that in order to keep the crowd going. You know, an early goal would be just, I mean, then you've got to think, can Bruges come away from the atmosphere and we 1-0 down? Getting an early goal would just be unbelievable, really. And the score could be God knows what. But I think we've got to just be professional, follow the instructions of the manager, and just all things being equal, I think we win because of the form, the quality of players, home advantage, and then we kick on. You know, this is a game that we looked prior to it all kicking off that we probably should expect 3 points. It shouldn't change now. In fact, it should have changed the other way if anybody had any doubts. So if that doesn't answer it, then I'll say it again. 100%, it should be a win that we're expecting tomorrow night.
I also think that all factors that you've spoken about there kind of lend themselves towards an early Celtic goal. There's a feel good absolutely amongst the support right now. I put an article out earlier on, not the newsletter, a separate piece that I put out, basically saying that everything's cooking with gas right now. We're playing well. Key players are signing new deals. Johnson, James Forrest, the board and the manager seem to be in harmony for the first time in a long time. And obviously things weren't quite that way when Brendan Rodgers left. You've got guys like Nicholas Kuhn and Rio Hatate on absolute top form. You've got the boost that having 7 points in the bag already gives you. Football's football and competitive sports, competitive football, and you can always get caught on the hop. But I do think it all points towards Celtic being favourites for a reason. They're favourites with the bookies. Celtic are even money favourites with the bookies right now. And that's for a reason. You know, they weigh all these things into consideration. And I do think, as we know, Celtic Park will be an absolute frenzy by 8 o'clock, if not sooner. And once that Champions League music hits, it just is different level stuff. And I think the players have been responding to that and will respond to that. I really do. I'd be amazed if Celtic don't score in the first half. I think that's not an over arrogant or confident prediction. I just think that's what seems most likely to happen. And if Celtic open the scoring, it's then a real tall order for someone to get back at us on such a night. Brydo, all that said, and we've talked the talk, we're now just about the end of the recording. What do you see the scoreline being on the night? I'm just going to give you some of the numbers as well, just to remind everyone. We've scored 9 goals in our 4 games so far, so we don't have a problem hitting the back of the net. We've conceded 9 goals. So Dortmund particularly, we obviously know that we've conceded as well at this level. So on that, what do you think we're going to see?
I think that both teams will score. I think that they've got threats, obviously. But I think that we've got too much for them. I think, and then even if it's not working, which we've seen, I trust the manager to make changes at the right time and early enough. And I expect a Celtic in a 3-1 victory, similar to the Leipzig result. I'm going 3-1 Celtic, and I do hope Engel scores and gets man of the match, and then I'll just make a wee phone call to my wee brother and let him know, just in case he's not seen it, you know.
If Engels does score, your brother can do the post-match with me at some point on Thursday. I think similar in terms of scoreline. I do think there's always a possibility at this level to concede, and I do think both teams, have got it in them to score. 3-1 as well is where I'm at, and it's in total agreement with Gypsy King. He's gone 3-1, San Fran's 3-2. Let us know any other scorelines if you catch a chance in the live before we finish. So there is a confidence there that Celtic can go and get a few goals. 3-1 would obviously be a mirror of the Leipzig score. and I just don't see why not. Celtic at this moment in time are scoring goals and plenty of them. I'll need to redo the stats again, but as of a couple of games ago, we were averaging 3-point-something goals per game. Not much has changed since then to affect those stats. So I just think we're in a very good place, Brydo. There should be confidence. Don't confuse confidence with cockiness or arrogance. They're very different things. But there should be confidence around Celtic at this moment in time. And as I say, that's fans, players, coaches alike, and for good reason. Brydo, it's a big one to look forward to. It's 8 o'clock at Celtic Park. Your final comments as we wrap up this one.
This is why we follow Celtic. This is why we want to make sure we win the league. And the fruits of winning the league are to get nights like this that's coming up. All right, Bruges aren't in the kind of top bracket of European football or anything like that. But because of what the game really means for us, if we get that win and what that means, I just think that the force of everybody pulling the same direction will be far too much for guys in that Bruges team. They'll probably go away thinking they've never heard a noise like that before in their football career and probably never will again. And I just think we've got to build on that momentum and that passion and environment. And I just think the players have done that time and time again. And when questions have been asked of them and questions have been asked of the manager, they've answered them. And I don't think any of us can really argue with that at all. So it's a real positive time to be a Celtic supporter. I think it's just a positive time to be anything to do with the club. And I just think that tomorrow night sees us, I think we'll see us raise the bar again and really kind of make it affirmative as to exactly where we are at this minute in time in European football. And I think that's a team that's really, really competent and professional and know how to get the job done.
Yeah, and I think there's so much to be excited about generally about Celtic just now. But as you say, tomorrow night, Celtic Park, these are amongst many big reasons to be a Celtic fan. You talked about that Celtic Park roar before the game. You might have seen Alistair Johnson speaking in the back of signing his new deal. He described that roar as animalistic in its nature, given his own experiences of it. And here's hoping, and I'm pretty sure it'll be much the same tomorrow night. Brydo, thanks for joining us here to preview the game. Thanks to everyone who's joined us in the live, and thanks to everyone who continues to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. We'll be back on Thursday at some point. Keep an eye on the socials. Back on Thursday with the post-match for this one. And again, here's hoping we're talking about another massive Celtic win in Europe. We'll see you again soon.